everyone, and welcome to Blue Star Rising, the Templar Awakening. Michael Henry Dunn here, with the one and only Maia Christine Nartoomid. Hello, Maia. How are you doing?
Hello, Mike. I'm doing fine, thank you.
All right, so
fine.
yeah, so we're back after
Yeah.
a couple of months in which we have not done a Blue Star Rising together. Maia has released many wonderful videos in the meantime, particularly the Grail Families series that's going on is very compelling and beautiful. So today is a kind of a unique format because rather than sharing an activational video that Maia has created, we have an outline from Thoth of material that you published some time ago, right, Maia?
Yes.
And what year was it that it was published?
Well, this is from different periods of time. Some of it is more recent, like 3 or 4 years ago, but some of it goes as far back as 1977. So,
Yeah, and so it is about what you might call the designer reality of how through our collective consent we can create what is referred to as a consensual reality. We all agree that water's wet, fire is hot, etc. And then beyond that, it is possible to enlist enough of us, you might say, into a designer reality, which can kind of begin with brainwashing and move on into something that actually creates an alternate reality. Is that an accurate description?
A fractured alternate reality, one that's artificial. That's why I call it designer. And that's what the agenda on the darker side is going on right now. But actually, the capstone of what I'm aiming for today is to talk about, this all leads up to the pyramidus radius matrix. That's the design that the higher light beings are offering us to be able to overcome this and to set a program of light while we're here in this domain on a higher octave of this domain to prepare us for transition into world system 2, the new Earth star reality, Aka, a centropic full light spectrum realm. So there's a lot to be said here on this, but yes, we're talking about the negative aspects of designer realities and all that. But what we're aiming for is not, the downside. We're aiming for the upside, and I want to bring us along to get us to that point, and we can discuss that.
Okay, yeah. So one particular clarifying point up front that I'd like to have brought in, given what you just said, is so designer reality also, in your understanding, means an artificial reality.
Yes.
And there is the divine design, we might call it, right?
Yeah.
And that the higher realms, higher beings, are helping us to move into a world system 2 reality, a new Earth star reality. Is that also in a certain way hierarchical and artificial, or does it proceed from the divine design?
It proceeds from the divine design. Maybe I should have said something besides design or reality, but that was just a little piece I put in here, because it's not designed by the consciousness of beings that's saying, let's do this. It's designed by a higher frequency reality. Now, what the ultra beings, the star kindred, the inner earth kindred, the angels, go on and on, the Illumined masters, what they're doing to help us here is not to create a design for us, but to augment the stairs, the structure, the format that allows us to move into the higher frequency of the natural, organic, shall we say, divine plan. Now, in that divine plan, we can create structures. If we're in a paradise like this, which I happen to have created from Midjourney, so this is one of my Midjourney artworks. And so if we're moving into something, on that level, well, we have a perfect right to create create within it. That's what we do. We're creators. So we create with inside it, and that doesn't make it a designer reality in the sense that I'm speaking about, a false designer reality. It's a natural field of consciousness, a spiritual program of light, and within it, we're little busy golden bees, creating our little hives and our little, but everything in it moves with it. It's part of the enlightened structure. When you're building a house, you don't say, well, let's see now, let's put these hammers, these nails together, and we'll just saw this, and we'll cut this. Maybe we'll have a house when we're through, and we go inside, it all collapses. It takes a lot of planning, right? Geometry and how the building is structured, and the right tools and the right dimensions, and this platform goes on that. Well, we have to be the ones that create that. But that's within the reality that is naturally flowing from source. We're a part of that reality as well. We are creators of that reality, but it's all part of a divine energy. And when you step out of that flow and you say, let's go over here, because I have an agenda and we can't create it in here, the God source is not going to let us do that. So let's just step over here in this corner, and we'll kind of, do our own thing, and we'll draw souls in to help us to do that. See, so that's the difference. That's what I'm talking about here. And, I have to use metaphors because all of this is really in the higher state. It's kind of hard for us little busy bees to understand. We're not quite there yet, but that's basically the essence of it. So I'd really like to start with the first one. What I'm going to do, these are different pieces written at different times, brought in from my translations from the Thoth Akasha. And I put it together in this way to bring us through to these stages. I don't know when some of these were written, some of them I do, but like I said, it's from anywhere from, a few years ago to 1977. So we start with consensual reality, Thoth's interpretation, what I'm calling Thoth, of consensual reality. Within the Thoth translation library, consensual reality refers to a group or mass of individualized sentience, as an example with human beings, that agree certain things are as they are. In other words, humans on Earth agree that water is wet and fire is hot, that day follows night. The brain of the individual will gravitate to accept this common perception, even when that individual is actually perceiving on some greater level sentient information which may contradict the consensual reality that they have agreed to participate in. That's an important point. This is not just a brainwashing, it is a true perceptual shift, a cognitive redesign in order to accommodate the consensual reality. Certainly, people who are brainwashed, who have been mentally targeted and groomed, will find themselves participating in a specific consensual reality. But brainwashing is only a first step. It is not yet a cognitive controlled shift into literally an alternate reality. Yet if this focused perception is not switched off at a specific juncture, they will indeed take the step into the designer reality that the controllers have deemed is their agenda. Now, let me continue. But what about the rest of us? Is humanity being brainwashed as a precursor to embracing a consensual reality? Yes and no. Let us take the no first. There is a natural process of embracing a basic consensual reality, which is necessary in lesser realms, such as where we are now, in order to function as a group of souls, all sharing a common ground. Without this basic consensus, we would not be able to perceive one another, at least not in a functional sharing way. As a yes, it is a form of brainwashing when we leave the basic agreement behind and enter a convoluted version of it, that is orchestrated by some other than our perceived selves, mental design to separate us from the common platform. This intention alienates us from divine centropy, core unity, and scatters us to the winds. So let's just take a moment. We have the basic natural, here we are in this lesser reality, lesser than greater than, where we need some kind of structure. we have to have that in order to perceive one another, to communicate with one another, to, form unity and in consensus. So we create that. It's limited, but it ain't bad. But then the those who have other agendas step in and say, let's see now, how can we utilize this consensual reality in our favor? And then the other side goes, oh, well, just a minute now. I have an agenda. I'd like to add to orchestrate it in my favor. And you see, that's where it goes. Wonk, 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 wonk. A wagon with 3 wheels, down the road. So I think, did I finish? Once we enter, just a moment, I lost my place. Let's see. Here we are. Yet even our basic common consensus is flawed. It develops from our need to unify, but it does not take us all the way home. When humanity moves from the baseline of world system 1, that's entropy, things breaking down, to a world system 2, that's centropy, unifying forces, we will discard the need for a contiguous consensus among us. Instead, our unification will come from a greater sentience, beyond the pale of the need to quantify our limitations in order to keep us in check. This internal quantifying is an attempt to protect us from our lower nature's creational power. That's a thought. That's a thought right there.
Could you read that sentence again? I think it's really
okay. This internal quantifying is an attempt to protect us from our lower nature's creational power. In other words, we all are a little wonky here and there. We've got thoughts that go this way and that way and whatever. And we're influenced by this and we're influenced by that. This is the world we live in. And it has been since we got here on one level to another. So we have a lower mind creational force. That's a survival mind. And it says, I don't like the way things are going here. I'm going to create my own little reality. That's what happens with, people, psychotic people, people that are going off in their little worlds that wind up in really bad shape. So we're saying we don't want that to happen with any of us. So we've got to follow a line here. We've got to consensually recognize things together. Red is red, blue is blue. We go down the line, we keep it together, keep it together. If we don't, we're afraid, we're fearful. It just didn't say that it was just it's an attempt to protect us from that lower nature, because the lower nature's creational force is very strong. Okay, so now, once we enter a higher realm of gnosis, that's pure knowing, beyond intellect or reason, we will, or our intellect anyway, we will indeed experience a new world where we can look at a color and I will see red and you will see blue. This will not confuse in that realm. It will instead enlighten us both to the true beauty of diverse connections embedded within our oneness. We will then be connected through the viability of universal similitude and not by our limited shared perceptions. Because we don't need those limited shared perceptions when we are all tapped into gnosis. And then we can perceive in major directions, and it doesn't threaten the other. My seeing red and you're seeing blue of the same object does not threaten me, does not threaten you. We go, oh, isn't that wonderful? It's red and it's blue and it's green.
Well, yeah, that's a far sight from where we are, and it's actually
it sure is.
a fair description.
We can't agree on anything.
Yeah, I mean, if you look on the political realm, for example,
yeah.
You look at the last few years, and you have on the one side, let's say, the QAnon folks, right? And the QAnon folks look at, let's say, the left-wing Democrat folks, and they say, how can these people be so duped as to believe this rancid propaganda that is being foisted on them by the New World Order and the deep state? How can they be so blind? And then over on the Democratic leftist side, they're looking at the QAnoners and thinking, how can these people be so completely brainwashed as to buy this deep state thing? And they're going for Trump, who is obviously, a narcissistic idiot. And, they've got these whole conspiracy theories and, how can, and it's like, oh my God, roll your eyes. There they go. This is like people living in completely different realities where the barometers of truth. What is real? The people in QAnon say, well, you're just buying everything that you hear on CNN. That's a gross filter. That's not real. People on the left go, well, you're just buying everything you hear on Fox News. That's absurd. Who believes that?
Well, it's both true because they're both extremes of the spectrum.
Right. Yeah, they're both BS, in fact. Yeah. So, but here the idea that in this centropic reality to say, oh, you're looking at that tree and you're seeing green, and I'm seeing blue. Isn't it lovely? The infinite, creative multiplicity of source from which we all spring, such that I have this unique perspective and you have yours, and don't we all love God, goddess, and each other, and let's go have a picnic in the astral,
Well, yes, I agree with that, Michael, but also what is at play here with these two sides, with the political thing and all that, is that there's an infiltration of the lower creational power on both sides. And that lower creational power is beyond, oh, I see red and you see blue. It is a distortion of the field. They're making sure both sides have a distortion, so nobody can find the center gravity. You see, the center point of gravity.
Right.
That is the way that the negativity, that you can call it anything you want. Right now, my favorite word of Thoth is the archonic influence, is playing their hand in everything, because we've lost our center of gravity. In fact, we never had it once we got down to this particular level of the earthen realm, but we really lost it now.
So this lower creational reality, you call it?
Yes,
Right.
Our lower nature's creational reality.
We need to be protected from our lower nature's creational reality.
That's our attempt. We don't need to be protected from it, but that's how we subconsciously perceive it. We must protect ourselves from it. But actually, it's not a matter of protecting oneself from anything. It's a matter of going higher and reaching that vibration that completely disintegrates anything that isn't there, that isn't part of it. So protection is not a word.
Yeah, pardon?
We perceive that in our subconscious mind that we must protect ourselves from that lower creational power. And of course, in the sense of doing that, we're thinking, well, it's your creational power that I'm protecting myself from, not mine.
Right. It's you wacky people. This is reminding me, by way of illustration here, of a classic sci-fi film from 1958 called Forbidden Planet. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, okay. Well, so a team of space travelers from Earth go to this planet where there was a team of scientists from Earth who landed there and were never heard from again. And so they land there and they find there's only two people left. It's basically Walter Pidgeon playing this professor and his daughter.
Yeah.
Leslie Nielsen, the young Leslie Nielsen, is playing the leader of the investigating astronauts. And they get there and everybody's wiped out. There's only these two. There's Walter Pidgeon and his beautiful daughter. I think this was actually ripped off from Shakespeare. It's a ripoff of the plot of The Tempest. It's The Tempest, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it's Prospero and his daughter Miranda are, so they get there and they go, what happened to everybody? How did everybody get killed? And it turns out, as the movie unfolds, it's like there's these sudden monsters that will appear out of nowhere. And the professor, Dr. Pidgeon, is saying to them, well, you see, we arrived on this planet and discovered that it had been inhabited by a very highly advanced civilization who had gone so far beyond the need for technology. They had reached the point where by their minds alone, they could create whatever they needed. So there was no need for factories or industry, and everyone was healthy and happy and well cared for, and they could just pursue the joy of living. But the catch was that what are these monsters that are appearing out of nowhere and devouring people such that only the professor and his daughter are left? It's because in their manifesting power straight from consciousness, they did not deal with the Freudian reality of monsters from the id, from
Oh,
lower nature,
yeah, that's
emotional
it.
reality, that while they were asleep, the shadow could just like, oh, you think you're all sweetness and light? You forgot about the devil inside. Wah! Here's a monster and it just ate your brother. You know, and so in the
Exactly. That
middle of it,
really,
it's like, oh my God, monsters from the id. It was a very sophisticated plot for 1958.
well, it was, and it fits perfectly with what this is
I
speaking
know.
about.
I was just, I mean, it struck me as we were talking, and I looked it up.
Yeah.
Planet. The title is something Planet, Forbidden Planet, and there it is. I
Mhm.
remember it's a classic. It's a very well remembered sci-fi classic,
Wow.
and that's
Wow.
really, it seems like an apt thing, right?
Yes, it certainly does. I've never seen it. I've seen the name, years ago, but I never
Forbidden
watched
Planet, yeah.
it. Yeah. So now we're going to go to heart ascension. Since all time is now and all experience is one, individuals in the current world consciousness may access the essence of the new Earth star before the actual ascension. Call upon your angels, mentors, and fairy friends to help you, for they are the windows and doors to the realms of light. It is possible that you are already embodied in an alternate realm of Earth, which is far more aligned to the new Earth star as well. Allow your current thought stream to move beyond linear boundaries and embrace this possibility, seeking communion with your alternate self and experience in that realm. Even if you currently have no alternate self, which is highly unlikely, but we're just going there for the sake of argument here, you may create one in the adjacent manifesting realms of Earth. Such meditation and communion will aid you in being where you need to be in the now, which is becoming the new Earth star within. This is what the heart ascension is all about. As Thoth explains, it is the ascension of the heart that must precede the planetary ascension. While the heart ascension must be activated via pure heart-centered consciousness through our intention and actualization of living this pure expression of the divine, it can also be called forth through direct inner planes contact with its essence. This is one way to open the path of grace, for it is grace that is the rarefied essence of love, and thus the new Earth star will truly be a world of grace light. Now, I don't have it written here, but let's talk about grace for just a moment. From the Thothic perspective, grace is that leap of divine knowing in the being that says, I don't have all the answers. I'm an imperfect human being. Here I am. And I know I have flaws. Some of the flaws I know, and I'm sure I don't know a lot of flaws I don't know about, but I have. But I have no self-judgment in this moment. And I have no narcissism either. It's just, I'm there. I'm just there. This is who I am. And I'm calling upon the highest aspect of my divine light being. And I'm saying, take me there. I want to be with you. I want to be in that reality. And I want to lift away from all of that and leave the rest behind. Not because I want a free lunch, get home fast, whatever, but because I know, I have faith that I'm truly a divine being. Like everyone else is truly a divine being. So am I. And I'm going to just turn loose these trappings of disenfranchisement, of the essence of poverty within, and move past that and just say, take me as I am, and I am that I am. And that, that's
Take me as I am, and I am that I am.
yeah.
Let's remember that sentence you just said. That's a
Yeah.
very powerful sentence. Take me
Well,
as I am, and I am that I am.
write it down.
Because it's simultaneously acknowledging our human frailty and flaws and besmirched reality. Take me as I am, and I am that I am, the name of God, right? That's very
Exactly, as I am. And I'm going to write it down because, when I say these things, it's coming through, and
right.
I've never heard it before.
There's a chant that I recorded on my second CD, Adoration, Sacred Yoga Love Songs,
Yeah.
composed by some devotees of Paramahansa Yogananda in India, called God, Krishna, Christ, Gurus. And And one of the opening lines is, will you take me as I am? Will you take me as I am? Accept me, right?
Well, there it is. There
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
it. And but then to proceed right to take me as I am, and I am that I
Yeah.
am. And you're affirming your divine identity while asking for not yeah, asking for grace.
Yes. There's
And
nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with asking. As Yeshua said, ask and ye shall receive. It's where you ask from. Are you asking from neediness? Are you asking from loneliness? Are you asking because you think you deserve it because you're some special being? Or are you asking because you know that all being deserves grace, deserves to be lifted up in the moment. And you are part of that being.
right. And it takes some, graceful flash of intuition and surrender and abandonment in a given moment to be able to suddenly realize, oh, I can cut through it all and call on my divine nature. I mean, there's something that Yogananda says about karma and how to, overcome our karma such that we can achieve reunion with Source. And he says that, that meditation, specifically Kriya Yoga, which burns the astral karma that we've locked in the spine over the course of many lifetimes, it literally, is burning it up and creating a magnet in the crown chakra to allow the 1,000-petal lotus to open. That is saying your 100% effort as a yogi, as a meditator, the very best, most dedicated 100% effort of devotion and meditation you can give is only 25% of what is actually necessary for liberation. An additional 25% is the grace of your guru, and then the 50% that lifts you all out of it is simply the grace of God.
Yes, there you are.
That's what lifts you.
Yes.
There's another brief little story, if you'll allow me, that I think also illustrates this, and I may have actually shared this in a previous program. I think it's a powerful illustration. Do you remember Inalia Benz? Have we ever talked about Inalia Benz?
I don't remember.
I think a fair number of our viewers will have heard of her. She's a teacher of what you might call ascension dynamics, of how to overcome fear, process fear out, and it's very much aligned, I think, with a lot of your work. And some years ago, she did an interview on Project Avalon with Bill Ryan. And she experiences herself as having come direct from Source, no previous incarnations. She's here to help raise the vibration on the planet by helping people process out fear. And she shared with Bill Ryan on this program that one time in the night, she was instructed from Source to leave her body periodically for a succession of nights in order to go to the home, or shall we say the palatial estate, of a very powerful dark wizard soul, part of the Cabal. Is this ringing a bell? Have we told this story?
No, I've not heard of it.
Okay. And that she was to go in her astral form into the home of this very powerful dark Cabal wizard, someone who had mastered a lot of dark arts, right? And who had done many horrible things on a huge scale in terms of being one of the movers and shakers behind what we'll call the dark faction, right? And that her assignment was simply to go into his presence, and he was expecting her, right? And he dictates to her his autobiography. He wants it to be recorded somewhere in all its horrific detail, his life, his achievements. It's as if, who's the Harry Potter villain? Hello.
I don't ask me. I've seen the shows, but I don't,
Come on. Come on. Right. Tom Riddle. Who's Tom Riddle? Anyway, we all know who he
It's
is.
a riddle.
I don't remember why I'm not here. I won't think of his name. Everybody on the planet knows the name of this villain, and so do I, and I can't think of his name. Voldemort. Hello, Voldemort. Right? It's like going into the presence of Voldemort.
Okay.
He's in his dark mansion, alone, glorying in his evil. And so this pure soul, Inelia Benz, direct from source, just goes in and she's present to him and writes down his horrific, nauseating, cruel, barbaric, sick life story. And she says it was like entering into the tangible presence of evil. It's like, oh, wow, this is what it feels like to me. So in succession of nights, she goes in and she records, sort of writes down his horrible life story. And then it comes to a conclusion. It's like, well, and so it is done. I have given you my life story. And she is present to him in her angelic nature as this innocent, pure soul, completely free of judgment of this horrible life of this man. And because of her complete absence of judgment, of unconditional positive regard, this dark soul experiences the transcendent moment of grace. What sneaks in is this, from the experience of her presence, the thought of the possibility of redemption, even for him, just somehow wafts in. And in that moment, there is this flash of transcendent realization of grace. Even, we say, accept me as I am, and I am that I am. This is the most extreme example. It's like Hitler times 100, right? But because she was there in unconditional positive regard, there's this flash of grace, and eons of ghastly karma are evaporated in a moment. It's like Adolf Hitler becomes the Archangel Michael, like, it's exaggeration, but suddenly he is completely freed. This is the way she tells us, he is completely freed. All of it's wiped away. And, and he's this incredibly guilty soul through grace, through the realization of grace, is freed from all this. And when she told the story, she said, people said to me, how could you have done that? How incredibly unjust, that he should have escaped, his just punishment. And she said, do you realize how much the vibration on planet Earth lifted when all of that evil was expiated? The massive lift for human consciousness, because even such a soul as him was able to receive grace and just,
Yeah, that reminds me of, as you're aware, but many of our listeners are probably not. I started a book. Thoth wanted me to start a book on his life as Thoth Racemus. And I wrote quite a few chapters. Generally, I'm not a quitter. If I'm going to write something, I write it all the way through, or I'm going to do something, I do it. But I got a certain part of it, and I just said, I just can't do this. It's just too, I don't know. I wasn't ready for it. I can't explain it, but I didn't finish it, And of course, Thoth is an easy guy. He's not going to say, do it. He's going to say, okay, you don't do it. Don't do it.
Finish, you were right.
Yeah, right. But it's so I have the chapters up there, and I've done a sort of audio book kind of thing on it, just put it out there. But in the story, and this was written in 1994 or 5 or something, that I wrote several chapters before I stopped. And there's one chapter about, now we're talking about Thoth as Thoth Racemus of Afra. He came in as the Thoth, first as Thoth Muzurud, when he came from the Blue Star Rigel to Atlantis, blah, blah, blah. And then he wanted to experience actual genetics of the earth directly. So he incarnated in an earth situation, although he had a lot of, star genetics, he still did that. And that was Thoth Racemus of Afra. He came to Atlantis, and he wound up in Egypt, long story. But anyway, in all of that, Thoth said that when he was born as Tirna, not just a name change. He looked a certain way. He was a very human being, of course, but he was in, a limited perspective that he had as Tirna. Well, Tirna was guided to have his initiation in the cave of Mithira and the cavern area. So he goes into the cave of Mithira to have his initiation. He knows he's, born for greater things, kind of like Jesus did as the carpenter's son. And, he went to his initiations in the solar temples of Egypt and in India and etc. So Thoth, not Thoth yet, Tirna, goes into the cavern of Mithara. Mithara, I think that's the way it's pronounced. And in the process of the initiation, he must meet the dweller on the threshold. And this is a grisly guy, okay? This is a demon. This is a monster. You can call it anything you want, but it ain't pretty. and so he's meeting this being, this being, and he opens his heart and floods it with unconditional love and light. And I'm not saying love and light. I mean love and light.
The real thing.
The heart, the soul of the being that this Tirna is reaching for, that is his higher self. And the being just, you could say changes. He just changes. He's just, changes into a poof of light or whatever. I don't know. It didn't go into, into detail to what he turned into, but obviously it was just poof, and it was gone in that form. And what happens is then Tirna, the energy of that is like a wave of effect, and he just falls to the ground, and you think he's dead. It was so powerful. But when he comes to, he looks different. He's not only embodied all the eighth octave, as Thoth calls it, the eighth octave of his being, which is pretty high up. He's also physically changed. Not that there was anything wrong with what he looked like before, but it's just matching, this higher experience. So he's completely physically different. He's taller, he's different, And so that is his experience. So what you were telling me really matches, I think, rather well, that chapter in my book.
Wow. So the unconditional love and light that poured forth from Tirna towards the dweller on the threshold transformed the dweller on the threshold and freed him, and also was the initiatory transformation for Tirna himself.
Exactly, because in order to do that, Tirna had to go up through the octaves, as Thoth calls it, and he reached the eighth octave, which is really high up, like I said, of the beingness. And when he did that, well, of course, it changed him. It opened that threshold, it opened that door, and changed the whole being.
Wow. Well, will you allow me to tell another illustrative story that I think brings that out? I'll try to keep it short. It's a little involved. So there's a friend of mine who does thought form healing work. He has the ability for many years of meditation to be able to see the, our etheric field around our bodies, to see the thought forms we have created through various traumas over lifetimes, and how they're limiting us, and to help us bring forward the hidden meaning within those thought forms, with the help of the Archangel Michael and the Sword of Light and our own ascent, cut off the thought form, release it, and you move into, a greater freedom in a lot of ways. And people have been healed from many things, schizophrenia and physical diseases and many things. And I've experienced it myself. So he told me one time that he was taking a nap. And so he's taking a nap, and he's kind of in an altered state, and he feels this presence come in, and he's just awake enough to recognize the presence. And we'll call my friend Francis. All right. So Francis recognizes his presence. He goes, "Jimmy?" He goes, "Yeah, Francis, it's me. It's Jimmy." So Jimmy's the janitor at this church where Francis sometimes does music. And he's a former hippie, Jimmy is. And Francis is dozing in bed, and he goes, "Jimmy, what are you doing here? What can I do for you?" He says, "Well, I'm in kind of a bad place, and I'm hoping you can help me. The thing is, I had problems with drugs and addiction. I ended up taking myself out, so he killed himself, and he's coming to Francis. I need your help. It wasn't quite just a suicide, but I'm in a bad place. And when you commit suicide, you're in a bad place on the other side. It's not good." And he says, "But I think you can help me." And so Francis says, "Well, sure. How can I help you?" He says, "Well, I need you to find a Catholic church. And I need you to go into the Catholic church and light a candle for me at the votive altar to the Virgin Mary. Light a candle for Jimmy. And you need to tell the priest that you're lighting a candle for Jimmy. And I think if you do this, it's going to free me. And I'll be freed from this bad place I'm in, and I can rise up and get out of here. And so Francis says, well, sure. Wow, Jimmy, I'll be glad to. And so he wakes up and he goes, my God. And then he finds out Jimmy died. Gets back to the church. Jimmy said, and he's going, okay, well, I got to do this for Jimmy. So he's driving around LA. He's going, oh, Catholic Church. Got to stop in there and light a candle for Jimmy. Well, of late, all the Catholic churches are replacing the votive candles with little electric lights. Well, just click this little light for your Aunt Sally. Click,
that's not good.
It's not the same as a candle. I'm sorry, it's not. And Francis goes, well, he didn't say flick a light switch for Jimmy. I can't do that. And so over a period of weeks, he's stopping at one Catholic church after another, and none of them have candles anymore. Right? It's like, oh man, Jimmy's suffering in a lower astral. I got to do something. Well, then he and his girlfriend go to Scottsdale, Arizona.
I used to live there for 2 months. Okay.
Oh, well, there you go. So there they are in Scottsdale, right? And they end up accidentally burning a candle they try to light a candle on the counter of this very fine countertop, and it ends up staining. It melts. They don't pay attention to it. It ends up staining the countertop. I said, no, that doesn't work. I gotta find a Catholic church. Well, it's Arizona, not California, and he goes to a Catholic church and finds a candle. Now, right at about this time, Francis is experiencing this horrible pain in his shoulder, and he can make it go away. He's trying to do thought forms on himself to make this, but where's this terrible pain in my shoulder coming from? What is this? So with this pain on his shoulder, he happens to see a Catholic church in Scottsdale. He goes in, and praise be, it's candles, right? And so he's got a candle with him, and he goes up to the votive altar. I'm like, I'm going to do this for Jimmy. This is great. I can help free Jimmy. And puts the candle kind of awkwardly inside the little candle holder. He looks around for the priest. There's no priest around. He lights it and says, well, I hope this works for Jimmy. And oh man, my shoulder's killing me, right? Because the shoulder's, this thing. Well, so they leave the candle. And then come Sunday, they think, hey, we haven't been to Mass in forever. Let's go to that church to go to Mass. So he and his girlfriend go to the church, and he's sitting in the pew, and he can see where the candle that he lit for Jimmy is, but because he brought in his own candle, it was at a funny angle, and it burned down, it blackened, it turned into this horrible, it's like he just completely blackened this whole thing. And he has this wave of Catholic guilt. Francis just washes over him. It's like, oh my God, my whole work is satanic. This is the judgment of the church on my entire work. It's a travesty. It's a fraud. I have blackened the holy place with my work, and he feels this huge weight of Catholic guilt on his shoulder, right? And he suddenly has the memory. It's like he does thought form healing work on himself, and suddenly it all comes clear what the source of this pain in his shoulder is. He has a flashback to being 12 years old, and a Catholic priest comes to his home and is talking to his mother. And the priest is there to have a mass and take his mother's confession, because Francis was conceived out of wedlock. And he hears his mother, 12-year-old Francis hears his mother say, yeah, well, Father, it's good to hear, because this one, Francis, this one was born in sin, and you need to help purify me, And so it's this feeling that in his very conception, he was besmirching his mother's soul, and he's been literally carrying this cross all these years. And in his wave of Catholic guilt, because Jimmy's candle didn't free Jimmy, and it's because of Francis's original sin, right? Suddenly it all comes clear, and he invokes the Archangel Michael, take this from me. And so the guilt is lifted, the thought form of this cross on his shoulder is lifted, and then he hears Jimmy saying, That did it, man. That did it.
Ah,
That did it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What it did, what it did, just let me finish it. So what it did was Jimmy's role in freeing Francis from just that accidental role of divinely designed the candle, the besmirching of it, the guilt, trying to free Jimmy. Jimmy's freedom came from helping Francis achieve his healing.
Yes.
Anyway, I don't even know how relevant this was, but I felt
Oh
compelled.
no, it's a beautiful story. It
Yeah.
is. It shows how we're all so interrelated, you know.
Yeah, and how grace operates,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
how
Exactly.
healing operates. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. It feels a little off topic somehow, but maybe
Oh,
somebody was
it's a
supposed to hear it. I
beautiful
don't know.
story. It's a beautiful story. So I'm going to continue now with
Yeah, please do.
something called Raw Star 2000. Raw Star 2000 sounds like a new car of some kind. I got me a Raw Star 2000. You want to go for a little
I
ride?
went through. I got a 1999. I guess I'm not quite there.
So anyway, this was given to me in the year 2000. Raw Star 2000 is a hierarchically generated planetary oversoul, which allows Earth's humanity to work within a stabilized consciousness bridge to the new Earth star future ascended reality of Earth. Using the Raw Star 2000, this bridging will be able to take place in the midst of the increasingly distorted sacred geometries of the old Earth reality. The distortions of these old Earth sacred geometries will be increasing as the planet moves through the magnetic solar, magnetic planetary, and other cosmic influences, which are beginning to affect the planet in very tangible ways, and will continue to do so into the future, right up to the point of planetary ascension. And remember, this was written in 2000, that's 22 years ago, okay? And think of how things are now. The Raw Star 2000 Light program creates a new geometry bridge or oversoul so that humanity can work with both forms, old and new, and not become entirely enmeshed in the warping effect which causes the distortion. So, he's given me this name, Raw Star 2000. He pulled that out of his hat just to give me a name for something. But the point is that this bridging that they're helping with, they're putting in place for us. Again, it's not creating something to lure us somewhere. This is a bridge like you need you lost a leg and you need an artificial limb to help balance you and stabilize you so you can get from point B, A to point B. Well, they're helping us out in ways like that, but they help us to get to where we need to go as spiritual and soul beings. So this bridging, what it's doing, it's allowing us a greater aid to be able to access the parts of our being in the new reality. Now, without any aid, the laws of the universe say we can do that, but it's not easy, okay? Especially when we're down here. So they're giving us a little help, a little bridging help. That's one of the things they've been doing. So that's what he's talking about there. So that allows us to have the benefit, added benefit of being able to more easily, not easy, but easier to access that future self within what we term within our linear reality we see as our present moment. Now, I'm going to continue here because we're going into world system 1 and 2, because this helps define that. To help us with the idea of world systems, Thoth gave us a scale context to place it in. The Lemurians called a world system a Na. That's not non-applicable. That's not Na, or a fluid progressive cell. A fluid progressive cell. Now that is what the Lemurians called a world system. Any world system, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, a fluid progressive cell, or Na. There are 29 Nas in one Atta, i.e. a knot or binding unit. So an Atta is a knot or binding unit. So you have so many progressive cells, and then you have a unit that comes together and unifies. I'm sorry, my cat is wanting me to go play with him in the living room. No, honey, I can't do that right now. The new Earth star will eventually take us through to the next Atta, where it will then become something else, a register within the full light Metatronic spectrum. This could be called World System 2. To clarify further, World System 1 is orotronic or half-light spectrum, entropic and trapped in a cycle of birth and death, with reincarnation the main dynamic, which is a soul cycling back into the system. World System 2 is Metatronic or full light spectrum, non-entropic and open source directed. The soul integration dynamic in World System 2 is manifestational flow from one light field to another in quantum propagation. This translates to, oh, I think I'll be a butterfly today. Now let's go back to the Nas and the Atas for a minute, because just take a look at this. So if we were just walking, if we were roller skating down the street, we'd have to go through 29 Nas to get to our Ata.
So forgive me,
Right. And so, but what's going to happen is with the grace factor present, or the great dispensation, Thoth often calls it that as well. We don't have to go through the 29 hours. We're only on one right now. One. We can have the grace factor in place to bring us through to World System 2. But a lot is going on to create the platform for that grace factor. So, that's a whole nother story. But if we just had to go, okay, I'm on one now, let's get to the second block. Okay, now I'm on two. You know how long that would take if we've only gotten on one on all this period of time. So that is why we have the grace factor. So anyway, you want to say anything about that before we go to the conclusion?
Oh, well, yeah, it's it reminds me, of course, of a couple of things. And I often go to Yogananda. He actually calls Kriya Yoga, which was brought forward by Mahavatar Babaji starting in 1861, taught to Lahiri Mahashai, and then Sri Yukteswar to Yogananda and Self-Realization Fellowship. It calls it the Great Dispensation. Kriya Yoga is specifically a accelerating sacred science that moves us through much more quickly on the journey. It's that it takes 1,000,000 years of ordinary disease-free evolution, ordinary human evolution, the 29 Nas, if you will, like each Na was 20,000 years or something, right? Mm-hmm. 1,000,000 years of diseaseless ordinary human evolution, and that Kriya, and not just Kriya, but other methods of working in the spine, other spiritual traditions, it's not as if Kriya is the only way to do that. It's a very powerful, authentic way, but that it's possible in a couple of lifetimes of concentrated effort, or ideally one lifetime, by our own self-effort to use this dispensation of this accelerating gift to take us through. Yogananda compared, he said, this journey of 1,000,000 years, if you compare it to a journey from New York City to Los Angeles, the soul starting out from an amoeba or whatever and on through, to finally achieving liberation and reunion with God. Like from New York to LA, so by the time that you have received a liberating technique such as Kriya, you've reached the LA suburb of Glendale. Right?
Yeah.
You're in Glendale, but the problem is that it's possible to spend a long time in Glendale.
Yeah.
If you're not using it. So this bridge you're talking about, and something else I wanted to ask you about. So, Ra Star 2000. Okay, this came out in 2000. It's a sort of cool name. And this is actually, it comes from a conversation I was having with our friend that I was telling you about earlier, that, all right, what's the necessity for giving it the cool name? The Ra Star 2000. Can't we just say that the angelic hierarchy is creating out of divine reality, out of divinely aligned creativity, the ability to help us avoid suffering and years of exile and to move from World System 1 to World System 2? that, and actually, I think this goes back to something we've talked about a few times, that when it comes to the pyramidus radius matrix, the trigger, the necessary number of awakened hearts on the planet that actually triggers ascension, LP40, pyramidus radius matrix triggers all of that, that there will be this moment when there will be those on the precipice, on the brink, on the fence. Oh my God, this is real, this is happening. I don't want to be left behind. And there will be a bridge. And there will be souls who have chosen to serve, to help people across that bridge from world system 1 to world system 2, to be able, before the door closes, that there is a moment at which, sorry, the ship has sailed. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, yes, there are a lot of components to all of this that we can, spend hours and hours talking about. But obviously, everyone on the planet now can't do Kriya Yoga to get where they're going.
All right.
It's just not going to happen. Okay, I'm not doing it. But I'm not marginalizing it. I'm just saying it's a fact.
Sure.
That's not going to happen. But Thoth is saying to me, as we're talking about this, because I was asking some questions, that the beings that did the Kriya Yoga and are still doing the Kriya Yoga, they're really doing it, are building that platform. They're helping to build the platform, because it's not the only way to get where we're going here. But what they're doing offers the energy, the structure, its vitality, and its ability to move forward. What I'm doing, just with, we, the group of Quantum Logic Interactive, it's a small thing. It's not Kriya Yoga, okay? But it's what we're doing, and we're doing it under the auspices of Thoth. He gave it to us to do this Quantum Logic Interactive work. Well, in its small way, it is also lending that energy to the full pattern. We could go on. This is lending it. This is lending it. This is lending it. All of these things lend it, so that the people that aren't doing Kriya Yoga, the people that aren't doing Quantum Logic Interactive, that aren't doing daily meditations, that aren't doing all of this stuff, and yet they're good people. They have good hearts. They're just trying to pay the next bill. They're working 2 shifts. They've got a sick child they're trying to get insurance for, and all that. That's all that can consume them. They're just trying to survive, but they're good people, good hearts, good souls. We are helping them.
Well, that's really good to hear. I hadn't thought of it from that perspective before. It's
that really touches me. I can't help it that that's my that's what I really, really want to do for humanity, is to help those who just are drowning in their own situation. And they're good people. They haven't really strayed from the path any more than any of us have, and yet they don't have the luxury to work on the things that we have the luxury to work on.
Yeah. It's like Yogananda said, there was this one monk, I think, who was just meditating and wasn't participating as much in the ashram duties. And Yogananda said, if you only knew how much he is helping the whole world by the depth of his meditations, and that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that our in helping to free ourselves, we help to free thousands of others. And it keeps us humble, I think, that realization.
Yes, it does.
Because go ahead.
The work that we're doing, we're being aided by those who are doing deeper work.
Yeah, I'm gonna
doing deeper work, and it just keeps going. And but it's not. It's not trying to compare. I'm just saying that we're on the shoulders. Each one is on the shoulders of the other, and that's the way it is intended to be.
Right. Yeah, and to me, that's the word hierarchy, which can be viewed negatively, linked to patriarchy. Hierarchy simply means above. Patriarchy means ruled by the male, by the father figure, and of course, when
There's
abused, it
matriarchy.
becomes the abuses of the patriarchy. But that when we're talking about hierarchy, and there's probably a better word, in the divine sense, it is the humble realization that you who have gone before can help those who are coming after.
Yes,
Where they are, you once were.
exactly.
And, out of humility, you are not superior, you are not better. You have simply started earlier and gotten there sooner. And you can, view with compassion where they are and say, here, sister, brother, here's my hand. And to be used by God, Goddess, without placing ourselves in the role of teacher, in a collective, beautiful cosmic way, that our meditations in and of themselves are preparing this energy that will help create the bridge.
Yes.
And that's a very beautiful thing.
Yes, it is. So I
So
have just
conclusion,
a little conclusion here. This was given to me by Thoth in 1977. That I do know because it's got a date on it. To simply awaken to the star novas in which you were created is not enough to gain access to the temple. For the temple, which is the need to gather, to unify and sanctify that union through the consecration of holy ground, was spawned in the fall of the soul from grace. The temple reaches upward. It longs to be where it is not. It is the developed understanding of the many who have preserved fragments of righteousness and secured these pieces into one mass, the rock. Yet the temple is only an understanding of truth. It is not the summit of that truth. Once the temple is raised, the soul must seek the spiritual counterpart of the temple, which is the light of inward spirit, that which illuminates the temple and breathes the divine life into its solemn chambers. I just thought that was a fitting conclusion to what
Could you read that last sentence again?
Yes. Once the temple is raised, the soul must seek the spiritual counterpart of the temple, which is the light of inward spirit, that which illuminates the temple and breathes the divine life into its solemn chambers.
Wow.
And so, where we are right now is really a divine moment. I know it seems like a really nightmarish moment in many ways on the planet, but it is a divine moment because it is calling us. It is calling us to the table. We can't say, well, I can't come right now. It's like it's calling us to the table. And even the people I was speaking of, the ones that are so busy and just trying to survive, a part of them has to come to the table. And it doesn't mean they have to meditate hours a day to do it, but they have to have a passion, a commitment to the good, to goodness, because goodness is reflected in so many different ways. They don't have to be able to quote Thoth or Yogananda or anything. I mean, that's wonderful stuff, but they don't have the luxury of doing that. They don't know it. They don't even know it exists, and they can't find the time to find it. But they can find goodness. Goodness is in their hearts. Goodness is what supplies them with the love of their children, the love of their family, the love of their neighbor, helping people out, doing what can be done. When the floods come, go to your neighbor's house, pull them out of the ditch, risk your own life to pull them out of the stream. That's goodness. And that comes in everyday forms. So that's the temple. And that's the light the temple is the union of all of the people that are doing this. And the light is that love, that compassion, that response to other human beings in the condition of life. So right now, I mean, we've had times in past, I mean, my gosh, from everything from the Holocaust to the Vikings landing in England, and you can go on and on to the Valkyries and everything. There's been horrible things going on this planet, masses of murders that we can't even imagine. But all of that is that collective karmic blockage in the field of consciousness that now is coming pouring out. It's just vomiting out into our realm because we've got to purge it. But as we purge it, the goodness in the human being is what is going to purify it, to purify the water so it's not filled with contagion. And that's what we're about right now, each individually. How can we help to purify those waters as they are purging out the, you know, the contagion that has to be eliminated?
You know, I don't have anything to add to that or to question from that. I think it's very complete, you know. I would, an idea came in from our friend, which was, it would be a really good idea to share with everyone, you know, we always have links below the video. And I think it'd be a good idea to have a link to the glossary of terms on your website, Maia.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that, and it's really beautifully put together, and they're very succinct. You know, a lot of times there are complex, profound realities, neologisms, new words that, you know, Thoth is more or less compelled to use simply because there are no words for the reality he's describing in our language. And so I'll provide a link to the glossary.
Okay.
It's very fascinating in its own right. You can spend a good hour or so or longer surfing the Thothic glossary.
Well, of course, it's just a beginning. I have not had time, and I'm hoping that there will be people coming up to help me. That is, read my stuff and say, "Oh, let's put this in the glossary. Let's put this in the glossary," because what I have there is like probably 1% of what could be in there
I know.
from the 55 years of Thothic translations, and I think it would be very valuable to have. So that's on my want list, my bucket list, but I can't do it alone. So I'm just saying, anybody wants to read my work and help me put the glossary together would be welcome to do so.
Right, but it's very handy for a lot of the essential terms, I find.
Yeah, it is.
Particularly as regards ascension and the whole dynamic here. Yeah. So with that, again, you know, of course, Reverend Maia gives Akashic readings, and you through her website at neworthstar.org. If you would like to have a personal session with Maia, by all means, go to the neworthstar.org website and you can book a time. And like and subscribe and share.
Yes, please do.
And yeah, let's just stay in our hearts and be good. And meditate if you feel called to, but do the best we can in any case. And yes. God bless us, everyone. And thanks, Maia. Thank you,
Michael.
Divine friends everywhere.
Bye-bye.
Be well. Bye-bye.